Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to Sweetwater's iOS update. This time out, an audio mastering app from Positive Grid. Let's get started. You may remember Positive Grid for their bias amplifier simulation app. We looked at that a little while ago on the iOS update, had very authentic sounding amplifier simulations. Now they come out with Final Touch. This is an audio mastering program. It's a multifaceted program that has EQ, stereo processing, level processing, the ability to get audio in and out in a variety of different ways. Final Touch really is a comprehensive audio mastering program, whether you're routing audio through your iPad or you're working with a file that resides inside the iPad. Let's take a tour of the Final Touch user interface. Here at the top, we see the audio file that we're working on. We can get files in and out of the app. Touching this button, you can bring them in from iTunes. This one I actually loaded in using Dropbox. You can do FTP, file sharing, audio paste. So a variety of different ways you can get files into Final Touch for when you want to start your mastering. The file is displayed here. Tells you the sample rate, the bit depth as well. We've got transport controls. Here we've got undo and redo, a few different settings that you can make over here. But most of the work is done down here in the center section. This is where we see the different processors that you can apply to your audio. And those are set up using the bottom part of the screen. We have 6 different processors available to us: pre-EQ, reverb, dynamics, stereo imaging, post-EQ, and a level maximizer. Now we can change the order of those by simply dragging them around. When you do that, it will automatically reset itself. So you can put those however you like. Let's put this back the way that it was. And you can activate a module by either dragging it down into the signal path or by touching the power button. Now here we've got a pre-EQ. This is actually an 8-band EQ. When you touch one of the bands, it shows up, and then you can drag it around to set it exactly the way you want it. There are several different settings for the type of filters. We have high pass, low pass, high shelf, low shelf, and peaking as well. Our next module is the reverb module. We'll bring that down and make it active. We have 3 different types of reverbs. We have room, hall, and plate reverbs. The parameters are available for those. And we have our input and output over here. And we can solo the wet sound, so we can hear just the reverb if we want to hear what that's sounding like. Next up we have dynamics, and this is a multi-band compressor. It gives us 4 different bands that we can work with. We'll select that and turn that on. We have the ability to work with all the bands at once, or you can work on the bands individually. Simply click and drag on the band to make changes to that. And you're setting up the compression for that particular band. You can drag the crossover points back and forth. So you have all the capability to set the parameters on that multi-band compressor. Next up, we have the stereo imager. And this gives us a display where we can see what's happening with the signal. We can also change the stereo width of the signal. We can set the phase for either of the 2 sides. So a lot of things we can do there to either widen our stereo image or to bring it in more tightly, as well as to correct for phase. Next up, we have the post-EQ, and that's actually the same as the pre-EQ. We've got 8 different bands there. Each of the bands is fully parametric, and we have those 5 different filter setting types. Finally, we have the level maximizer. Drag that down into the path. This is basically a limiter. You set the threshold, which determines how much limiting you're applying. You can see the gain reduction. Over here on the right-hand side, we can set the bit depth, anywhere from 8 bits up to 24 bits. We can add different types of dither to that. We have 4 different types of noise shaping as well. Rounding things out, we have the master section of the app, which is over here. We have the master input and output. We can see what's happening with the levels there. We can stereo link that. We have a master bypass down here, which turns off all of the stages of the processors at once. Bring those back on. And we also have master preset capability. So we can load up a variety of different presets, different types of genres there, different instruments, general purpose type things for broadcast. So lots of presets available. We also have presets available for each of the individual processors. So we can access those by clicking above the processor, choose the one that you want, and it will load up, or you can reset back to the factory default. So let's take a look at what Final Touch can do for us. I'm going to go ahead and start the music playing, and we'll just sort of play around with some of these modules here. I'm not going to do an actual master, but we'll just move some of the parameters and see what that does to the sound. So we'll bring on our EQ here. So you can see we have a lot of capability using all of the different modules in Final Touch to really shape the master the way we want it to sound. Once you have your audio mastered the way that you want it in Final Touch, you can save a preset for the overall settings. You simply create a new folder, store your preset in there, and then at that point you can export your audio. Click on this button here. You can export to Dropbox, to an FTP site, you can email out, you can do file sharing or audio copy. And when you make one of the selections, then you can choose a sample rate, you can choose a bit depth, and you can also choose a format. We can go to WAV files, AIFF, M4As, MP3s, or FLAC. There's another powerful feature in Final Touch that I want to show you before we're finished here. In addition to being able to work with audio files, you can also use it to process live audio. Let's take a look at how that works. To do that, we need to boot up Final Touch inside of Audio Bus. We will go ahead and open up Audio Bus. Now we've looked at this before on the iOS update, but the way this works is we have an input app, we have a processing app, and then we have an output over here. For our input, let's choose a simple app. Let's choose, say, a drum machine. We'll choose DM1. We can launch that. Once our input is launched, then we can launch Final Touch as our effects processor. We'll simply click on that here. Launch that. Now what's happening at this point is we've got the drum machine running inside of Audio Bus, we've got the processor running inside of Audio Bus, and now we can choose an output. We can send it to another app, or we can send it to the system output, which is coming out of our headphone jack here. So if we go back to our input, we can start that playing back. We can switch over, Final Touch. You can see we're running in Audio Bus mode here, there's no waveform. And now we still have access to all of our different processors. So we can come back over to our EQ. Make whatever adjustments we want to make there. In addition to processing apps that are running inside the same iPad, we can also process external audio. So we simply take this out, and then when we open up our input, we choose the system audio input, which in this case would be the microphone. But if you had an audio interface connected, you could be running any sound source you wanted into that audio interface through Audio Bus. It would pass through Final Touch and then come back out in the mastered state. I hope you've enjoyed this look at Final Touch from Positive Grid. This is a really capable, flexible, and comprehensive mastering program for working audio from external sources as well as files right inside the iPad. You can certainly do professional level work using this app. Thanks for joining me for Sweetwater's iOS update. Be sure to tune in next time. We'll have more apps, more hardware accessories, and more tech tips on making music with your iOS devices. I'm Mitch Gallagher.